I'm Brendan Birch. I run the animation studio 6 Point Harness, and we're based in Los Angeles. I also run the student committee on the board of Women in Animation. We have been working really hard over the past few years and our goal is to demystify the pathway from classroom to career. And we've been doing that through a number of ways. The first being signing up students en masse. SVA was really one of the leaders in that program. I think we have like 300 students maybe signed up over there.
I think 400.
Yeah, it's a lot. And then CalArts, of course, had to follow suit, and they started falling like dominoes after that. But we do a lot of studio tours in order to demystify this pathway. We do job emails, mentorship, programming, screenings. We have our own scholarship program. So we're working hard. We see that there are a lot of female students in the schools, and we want to make sure that we get as many of them placed as possible. And we want students to feel like they're part of the animation community before they're thrown into the animation community. So that's my intro. We're going to introduce all of ourselves, but I kind of want to know a little bit about you guys. Just snap judgment. How many of you are students right now? And great. And how many of you are recent grads? All right. And that's pretty much the group. You guys aren't eating fancy lunch with the folks downstairs, so this is good. We'll kind of orient the conversation a little bit more towards you guys. And if you think of questions along the way, I don't like waiting until the very end personally. So if something comes up before we move on to something new, I might ask you if you have questions. So please make this time really useful for yourselves. All right, so let's do some intros.
Hi, I'm Deb Stone. I'm the Director of Recruiting and Talent Development at Blue Sky Studios and the co-lead of the WIA New York City chapter.
You're reading that.
What's my title? Oh, yes.
That's funny.
Hi, my name is Shanqing Mo. I'm the Director of Operations for the Master Program in Computer Arts at School of Visual Arts in New York City, and actually will be moving on to my new role at SVA as the chair for BFA Animation in about a month and a half. Yay. And then I'm also the co-lead with Deb for the Women in Animation New York City chapter. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Cécile Carr, and I graduated 2 years ago from Gobelin School in France, and I studied as well as CalArts. And I am now working since 2 years in the SPA studio in Madrid on the next project, Netflix project, Klaus.
That's great. So we're going to try to sort of frame this around something that I read from the Harvard Business Review. I'm not like a smart guy, I just Googled this in prep for this panel, but they did a survey, I think it was last year, 54 recent graduates, and they found that the reason young people entering the workplace struggle is mostly cultural. The cultural shift plays out along at least 3 key dimensions: feedback, relationships, and accountability. So we're going to kind of talk around some of these different things. I think starting with maybe Shang, how can schools sort of prepare students for the feedback part of this? It is sort of a criticism that comes up that students aren't necessarily ready for the rigors of the workplace. Mm-hmm. How is SVA working to prepare them?
So SVA, what's really special about our institution? But first of all, I want to say it's just I'm sharing from the really SVA perspective. I'm interested to hear what other institutions have done to help with the students. So back to the question, what SVA have done is our entire faculty body is industry professional. So we're bringing the industry standard directly to the classroom. And so I think what we can do better is actually implementing the critique and the feedback directly in the classrooms. We do have, but throughout so we're talking about a 4-year program versus a master. I think if you're talking a master program, students are older in their age and probably have some sort of industry experience. So I think that's, I would say, easier to tackle. However, still in the sense that they're like, oh, this is just a classroom. I don't have to be as professional, but it's the mentality, preparing them that whether or not you're in the classroom or in the industry, or even just peer critique, how do you be able to accept positive and negative feedback as well, and how do you respond? How do you change your work based on the feedback that you're getting? So I think it's really implementing in the curriculum that's really important.
Cecile, could you kind of talk about how you're sort of an interesting case, but what was like the pathway from school to work for you?
Yeah, for me, so yeah, maybe I'm not a representative example, but so my experience was that I had several experiences in a workplace during my scholarity. So I could, like I had internships, like I guess you guys can do internship during summer between the time you are actually in class. In my case, after these several experiences, I could have a nice portfolio online, and I think that helped me a lot to be visible in the animation industry. So I was contacted directly by Sergio Pablos. At the time, he was looking for animators for his project Klaus. So I was very lucky to have him trust me. And when I graduated, I directly joined the project Klaus. But first, at the time, he was not looking for animators because the project was still in pre-production. So I proposed my services as a story artist because I experienced storyboard during my making my graduation film. So he could see that I had tried storyboard before, and he was nice enough to trust me to try doing storyboard. And it worked well, so I stayed in storyboard for 1 year. After that, I joined the animation team, where I am currently working. So that was my my parcours. How do you say? Yeah.
Did you find similarities in the feedback that you would get at school to the feedback that you're getting now that you're at work? Actually,
so in school it's very specific because we have a lot more time than in production in a studio. But I think in Gobelin we were lucky enough to have the teachers come all from studios, so they are trying to bring their experience with them and try to give us some tips of how it works in studios, but nothing replace a true experience that you could have during an internship. I mean, you can have teachers telling you deadlines are very important, please respect that and everything. You don't really realize it unless you really experience it in a studio. So yeah, I think the fact that teachers are working in the animation industry definitely helps to have a better vision, and they bring the vision from the studio in school. Yeah.
No, that's great. So I want to throw it to you, Deb. I'm kind of curious how you think the schools are preparing students for the sort of rigors of, what you guys expect, and whether or not they're, well, just maybe you should talk about this feedback thing. Is there anything that you're noticing that they could do better? Is there anything that you're, how are they sort of preparing them for the sort of the norms and the rigors of the workplace?
I do see a big difference in students are coming from schools that do group projects, because group projects make people accountable to each other rather than just themselves and their own thoughts and their own ideas of what they want. But when you're working at especially a major studio that has 5, 6, 7, 8,000, 800 people, 1,000 people in the studio, you're one person in a giant team, and you have to be okay with teamwork, and you have to be a great team player. And so I've noticed that people who have done group projects just fit in a little bit quicker in terms of that, rather than just feeling like, oh wait, this is my idea, and feeling like they're taking too much ownership over what their ideas are. And it goes for like every discipline in that world. So
What about students who come from schools who don't do group projects, like more individual films, like I've got to make my film? Or do you notice a difference between the two?
I mean, if I'm just generalizing,
Sure.
I could see where someone would be, especially like in a storyboard role or something where, they're a story artists and they're trying to iterate different ideas and the director just wants to know, like, give me like 5 ideas for this one idea. And if someone doesn't have the experience of kind of iterating like that, they may get stuck and may want to hold on to that one idea where the director's like, I need more, I need help, come on, let's move this along. So I could see if they don't have that experience, that could be a tough lesson to learn right up front.
Right.
Which is also why, like I mentioned, you having internships and things, and internships and training programs, especially the major studios, such an important thing to give students kind of that first place to start, and give them a chance to fail a little bit in that place, and to say, like, have a mentor who kind of puts them in their place a bit when it comes to, you can't hold on to that, or you have to be, more open to thinking broadly and that kind of thing. So I think those types of programs where you have a strong mentor who can really guide someone will help even students that never did have the experience of working on a team project.
And do you pair them up like one-to-one kind of thing when they're coming in? Like,
We do, yeah. So every one of our interns has a single mentor, and if there's like 2 or 3 interns per department, usually they share the mentors across all of them, but each one has like their own specific mentor, so they have ownership over someone. But
You mentioned internships. I don't want to focus too much on you, right? I want to move it around, but how do your guys' internships work at Blue Sky?
in what regard?
Just, do you have like a program? Is it something where, is there sort of a standardized thing when people come in and, they do the same amount of, the same kind of thing, right when they come in? Like at 6 Point, for example, like we kind of have a weird thing where we just put everybody in front of the computer and teach them the tools that we want. It's like, here's the manual and how we use Harmony, and here's how we use this tool, and we sort of leave them alone for the first week just to let them kind of be.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you?
So we currently this year we have 27 interns across all the different departments, so whether it's 1 or 2 people in each different department. But those mentors and the supervisors of the department are in charge of actually creating like a 10-week syllabus that's it's regimented to a point of making sure that the work that they're going to accomplish over the summer is enough to prove one way or another that this person could be hireable onto our team.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it depends on the department too. Like animation does a lot of tests to get them to where they want them to be, versus some of the departments that are more asset-based might do stuff that's actually on the movie that we're working on if they are able to actually get to that point. But yeah, it's very specific of like what they're going to be working on week to week, and then maybe a little broad in, well, it might take them a little bit longer, or towards the end, since they've done a lot of this stuff already, we may open it up to letting them choose what they want to do at the end. Again, it varies by the department, but it's at least within a 10-week window. Each week is set up for certain goals.
Okay. Shang, I'm kind of curious how much feedback you guys get from some of your early graduates, or do you guys have any sort of processes in place to sort of know what's working and what's not working in terms of, students who are being placed?
Mm-hmm. We actually, so SVA, we have a career development office that's really serves the entire college from all across, I believe, 32 different programs, and they will do a survey a year, I believe, after they graduate. I'm looking at Angie. A year after they graduate, they will do a survey on, where they are in their career after school, and, how their path going to where they are currently and where they want to be. But then a lot of things also fall into the individual as an educator, that we have direct relationship with the alumni, that they will contact us and then say, oh, I've moved on from one job to another. So we really have a close relationship with our alum, and I think that's one thing I think across all the institution is the alumni network is actually the bridge between education and the industry, and that's how we can bring more talent into the industry. But then the other thing I was going to add to that is, as an institution, as an educator, we also want our students to know what you want to do, because either a 4-year, 2-year program or 3-year for different countries as well, for us to better assist students in finding their career path is actually have students to be more vocal about what they want to do. And obviously we all have gone through the transition from not knowing what you want to do. I really want to do this, but there's also other opportunity. Where should I go? I think we all go through that, but the fact that being open and being vocal about what your questions are and ask for help, and like that mentioned, that not being afraid of failures and mistakes and learn from that is really important. Then us as educators then work with industry closely, then can help you find that path.
You went to Gobelin, and did you do a semester at CalArts?
Yes, I did.
What were some of like the big differences that you sort of noticed, and even like internationally, I think culturally it'd be interesting to hear.
Well, culturally, there is a big difference in terms of. I don't want to be negative in any way. I would say I felt more enthusiasm in United States, when in France maybe students are more afraid of expressing themselves. They are more afraid of being criticized. I mean, this is a very personal feeling. I don't want to make generalities, but this is my experience. And in terms of how the programs are made, and the big difference between Gobelin and CalArts is that in CalArts they do personal projects, when in Gobelin we mostly work with group projects. And I think both are very important. Group projects really help to get used to the profession. I mean, to get used to maybe workplace conditions when you will have to interact a lot with people, being very open to critics, receive feedback, react, express yourself to someone else. And in the same time, the very good thing in doing a personal project is that you can really experiment and take more risks than if you are in a group where you rely on people rely on you, you rely on other people, you have responsibilities toward them. So this is less important when you do a personal project. So I think it's really important for the school to propose both types of exercise, but even group project doesn't replace an experience in a workplace, in a studio, obviously. So yeah, I would say it's the biggest difference between the two schools. And another thing I noticed. It's a cultural thing, maybe, I don't know. But I realized that in United States, teachers are very, very positive, very encouraging. So it can really motivate you and support you when you have hard times, when you need more motivation. It's really helpful for that. When in France, teacher will tend to insist more on the critiques and like things to improve. So they are more focusing on the bad side. I mean, it's good. It's very challenging. You need to yes. Maybe, yeah.
They don't know how to teach a class. And we just are working with youngsters and students as we were already professionals.
Do you want to turn that into a question?
But, teachers in CalArts are actually professionals from the big studios around, so they are very used to teaching and to the professional world. So I don't know.
Which do you respond to better, though? Like, what works better for you?
I think it's really I was very lucky to have both because I know some people. If you have a fragility, or if you're a bit insecure, I think it's really good to have that very positive support from the teacher. It can give you some confidence that. I mean, when you're an artist, you really need to believe to your project, to what you're doing, and having someone telling you, yes, it's great, you should continue, work hard, because you need to be involved in your work, you need to believe in it. So that support really helps you to have this energy to put in your project. So if you are this kind of person, you can react very well to the US culture, but maybe the French culture could be a bit tough, hard to support, and you could feel really bad and discouraged. But if you are someone who needs to be challenged and to see that you are very far from the goal and you need to continue working, you cannot rest at what you are at the level you are. I mean, you achieve something, but you need to work more. So the French culture brings you more the challenging part, I would say.
But can
Yeah.
I chime in on that? I feel like, you know, us in the States, I always want to give students a reality check, you know, and instead of just encouraging like, oh yeah, it's great, you know, keep doing what you're doing, but also it's our responsibility to be honest with them. At the same time, I think it goes back to being, look at the student body as individual, and as a one person, what you prefer that works best for you. I don't think we can have one system apply to all. I think that will be unfair to a lot of different type of artists.
How do you do that with as many students as you have? Like, how do you individualize somebody's, you know, experience?
So you have to have a good faculty and staff body to support you. I think for my current job at MFA Computer Arts, we have 100 students and we have 8 staff members. And we also along with 40 plus faculty. And really having a common goals across different level and identifying student, whether or not this person's struggling or having an amazing time and getting into a festival, then we need to know all the news so we as educators then can better assist you on either helping you in any way possible. So it comes from all angles. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about just technical preparedness and what your experience right now is like, just generally, I guess, with schools, but how technical, like how prepared are students with using some of the tools that you guys use, or sort of getting to the point of, you know, understanding those tools? Like how prepared are they?
From a tool perspective, Blue Sky uses a lot of the standard off-the-shelf. You know, we customize once it's inside, but it's a lot of this, standard Nuke and Maya and those kind of software. So most of the major schools that are teaching animation programs are teaching their students those skills. And then obviously we do have a few softwares that have been made internally. And we always tell students that it's all about their craft and the art that they're producing, because we can always teach someone, like if they know one tool, we can always teach them the other tool. We just need to know that they have the eye to get there.
Yeah.
So it's different when you're hiring a full-time person or a person that's going to do a run-of-show project, and you just need to get them in and get them going. Like if you want them to be doing effects and you want them to know, certain things like Houdini, then you're looking at hiring just someone who just can walk in and know that. But if you have the opportunity for training and mentorship with someone out of school, then again it's really about, are they artistically or technically like at a certain level that that they'll just take on that software and learn it from there.
Right. And along the same lines, in school, how much of an emphasis was there on, did we get a little feedback? Technical tools that you were using, and like, was it useful to you? Was it helpful at all in transitioning out of school?
Yeah, I mean, I think something that really helps Goblin students to adapt to the professional world is that with the group projects, we need to really tackle all the the steps of the production of a film. So we need I need to experience all the softwares and programs and techniques. I mean, they try us to experiment as much as possible, and we cannot really escape from doing every job involved in creating an animation film. So that helps a lot, and that helps a lot also to have a big picture of how a studio works. I mean, you can talk to every kind of job. If I'm an animator, I know the importance of layout, and I know after animation there will be color and compositing, so I need to be very careful to have the character, interact with the layout well. I mean, this is very basic practical example, but this is something you learn by really touching every steps of the production of
Were you going to say something?
I was gonna say, in addition to the technical chops that we're teaching, for talent to go into the industry, the other thing also I want to emphasize is the soft skills that is also really important. And how do you prep students or young talent in any institution or non-institution? How do you prep them to get into the industry? And then one thing I was going to emphasize is a couple of things. One is just a mentoring program that we has launched for the student group mentoring program. That's been interesting experience. I was one of the mentors for the New Year's Eve chapter, and I was able to, very lucky to have 2 students from Pratt Institute, and to learn, because I don't, working for one institution, you may or may not understand fully. For me, I didn't really understand too much about how their institution works and how they're getting their education. So working with them helped me a lot understanding that, but also figuring out how to teach them how do you prepare for interview. We actually invited Deb to come as a speaker to do, what do we call this?
Mock interviews.
Mock interview. I was going to say speed dating, but no, the mock interview.
Mock interviews, yeah.
To help with that. And the other thing also I want to mention with the soft skills is really encouraging students to go out to festivals. So the fact that a lot of you are here, I think it's really, really great, because you're here not only with your fellow student, but you're also here meeting with the industry people and making connections and knowing how to talk to them. I think one thing we mentioned in our mock interview session was that for any hiring manager, they look at the talent. It's not just, they look at your work, they look at your creativity and your chops, but also they look at you as an individual to see whether or not you fit into the culture of they're in a studio. So they, every second they look at you, talk to you, they're evaluating that. Do you agree?
Oh,
Yes.
100%.
Yeah. Well, you mean,
Well, because usually, especially in the artistic disciplines, the first thing we're looking at is a portfolio or a reel. So once we get beyond that, it's, what's the personality here? Mm-hmm. So, you want to make sure that the person can take feedback and that they're going to be a team player. And so, the questions in an interview are a lot usually framed around that. Sometimes it's about workflow too, but, really to make sure that they're going to fit in the team, because I think as long as their skill level is at a certain point, then you need the personality to fit to continue to grow that person and groom that person in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And how deep do you go? I mean, we still get cover letters where there's no capitalized letters and commas instead of periods. I mean, honestly, for me, when I'm reading that, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to put this person in front of a machine. Mm-hmm. If they can't even, write a letter, or they can't sort of personalize their message to me, or just anything. How deep do you guys go at SVA? And
Yeah, I can speak, I think, across 3 different departments. We have representatives here that we implement career strategies, or whatever a similar title is, into our curriculum, having someone to work with you on how to put together a portfolio, how do you do reels and cover letter and resume. So all of that are important. But then it all goes back to student being initiative of asking for help. It's one assignment, you do it, you send it out, but it's another thing, are you actually paying attention to all the the typos and everything? Are you actually getting feedback from your fellow students? Or even just reach out to people in the industry and be like, hey, can you look this up? And can you look it for me and give me some feedback? I think it has to come from the student directly. I think once we force you into being an assignment, there's always a resistance. I think that's just human nature. But I think, it has to come from student, like you have to be wanting to do this job because down the line you can see yourself in the industry in taking on any role that you dream of.
Yeah.
I want to add to that.
Yeah.
A lot of us in the industry go out to the schools ahead of time, ahead of our internship due dates or the time when a student's going to apply as they're graduating. We meet with the students and we look at their portfolios and we give them feedback at that point, which is usually a month, 2 months prior to our due date for the internship. And it's interesting because I don't think the students realize like how much we do remember of their art. Like I may not remember everyone's name, but I will remember your portfolio or your reel until I don't know, you're in the industry for like 15 years. Like I'll always remember what I saw that day. And we will notice that you made a change that or the artist, the visiting artist that comes with us on that trip, that we gave you that feedback at that time, say like, hey, you might want to not put this in your portfolio, you might want to work on trying to get an extra shot here, an extra piece of something here, and to see people who take that feedback and then apply to us a month or two later makes a huge difference, because also then we as recruiters can give that feedback to the hiring managers and say, hey, I've seen growth of this person within only like the 2 months since I met them.
Yeah.
And so even that is just something that we can like hang our hat on.
That's great. That's great to hear.
Yeah. And we've hired people because of that, because we've seen the difference. Like I met this one person at CTN, in November. Then I saw the person again a couple months later at their school, and then, saw their reel come in at time of our internship, and I was like, wow, this person grew so much, or at least showed that they listened and put stuff on their reel that made a difference for us.
Right.
So.
I swear that's the only reason I'm here is my work ethic and attitude. It was definitely not my work itself. I said I would ask if you guys had questions along the way. Do we have any burning questions from anything we've talked about so far? Because we'll just keep moving. All right. Well, Cecile, I'm going to ask you sort of a question that might cause you to give a vulnerable answer, but like now that you've kind of been in the animation business for just a minute, what are you sort of worried about next? And like, where are your anxieties now?
I think it's in my position, I think it's always hard to know, to choose the next job, to know what you really want to do, to really understand the reason why you want to do that job. And particularly when you're starting in the industry, you have a lot of possibilities. So you feel like every choices you make is gonna close doors around you. So you need to really think a lot. So this is my main worry now, is to really find what I want to do in industry. Actually, I don't and I mean, a second thought I have, I mean, it's not for now, but because also I'm older than most of you, maybe, I don't know, but I'm starting to think if I want to have a family life, having children or anything, maybe I need to think about that too. There are some opportunities I will not be able to take maybe in the future that I should take now. So this is also something that needs I have to keep in mind. So it has some constraint when making choices.
I was going to ask you too, Shang, do you guys have a rise in international students applying, and how is that changing what you guys are doing? And I know I just sort of bounced to a whole other subject, but like, how has that changed what you guys are doing? And I was going to ask you this similarly. Are you guys recruiting more international talent. You know, there's often people talking about there being such a competition for talent right now. I think it'd be great to hear from two U.S. people what you're doing.
Let me find my notes.
Can I add something, because
Yeah.
I was thinking about your question, and actually when you were talking about the culture, I mean, when you choose people, you need to see, when you talk to them in an interview, you need to see that they are going to fit in the team, they're going to have the right culture. And yeah, actually, after thinking, I think this is the toughest thing for when you want to find a position in some studios. You know, you need to adapt to a team, but how can you adapt to a culture when you cannot experience it? So it's really hard to and I feel like technique skills, you can learn it at school, you can practice it a lot, but culture is really something you cannot cheat with. You need to experience it. So there is no fast way to learn it. So this is, maybe this is the most challenging thing as a human being, professionals, because and it's the same for why the reason also why there is not that many women in animation industry, because it's also a question of culture, to adapt to an environment. So this is a really important thing to keep in mind, that having a position in a studio is I don't know, the proportion is maybe 50% of skills and 50% of behavior and culture and all that. So that's just what I wanted to add.
Have you discussed openly, like at your job, what you want to ultimately do and what your goals are, and
sorry, say it again.
Have you discussed at your job like what you want to do? Have you told them like, these are my goals, this is what I will eventually?
No, we never had really this discussion. I mean, when I had an issue with a specific task I was doing, I would talk about it, like for very short-term issues, but I never had a discussion about long-term plans, no. But maybe because it was not the moment for that. I don't know.
But I'm sorry, you were going to talk about international students.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, you actually brought a good point about adapting to the culture, workplace, and, when you're going to someplace new, whether it's a school culture or country, whichever, I think it's extremely hard. For me, as a personal story to share, I was also once an international student. It took me 1 year. My friend brought me out to like different parties and stuff, and he will always look at me and say, "Why don't you talk to my friends?" I mean, we both speak Mandarin at the moment. I was like, I can't, because I have to understand them first, be able to have a conversation. So it took me a while to even be where I am right now with English. So it's extremely hard, and we do have a rise in international students across, I believe, all America, and. So I think in some way, we also are looking for diversity in terms of student body as an institution. How do we achieve that in terms of gender as well as country origins? Those are really important to us. We still look at portfolio. That's the first thing we look at. But working with admissions office, really finding talent that people are really driven, that they want to come and study. That's the goal for us. And once you're in school, then our job comes in to actually figure out how we can guide you, again, a 4-year path, whether or not it's suitable. It might not apply for everyone, but you might start from 3D, then you halfway through, you're like, actually, I want to do 2D, and how do we work with these students and give them an option to navigate from one place to another? I think those are really important. And then also, I think I think for international students, what they're really good at is they already have a mentality, they're already out in their comfort zone, being in this other country, so they're driven in that sense. But also having the school to provide environment and different support groups to have people they can help out each other, that helps a lot.
What do you say?
So visas are its own headache for all of us, at least in the U.S. at the moment. And so, visas are definitely a case-by-case basis, but when a student is at a school in the U.S., that at least gives them a year to work professionally in the U.S. before, depending on the company they're at, they may be able to extend that a little bit. But even after that, then there's still a visa you have to apply for to keep them long-term, and that's becoming even more difficult. So my thoughts are, at least because there's one visa at least called the O1 visa, where if students at least can get their films, again, working on actual films, and get their films into awards and festivals and things like that, where they can start getting accolades and getting press and things like that, that helps build a case for them.
Yeah.
So I encourage anyone who really wants to get to the U.S. at some point to make sure that they're trying to follow those steps and get their films out in the world, because you have to build a case for each person and why that person deserves this job over someone that's in the U.S. And so the more special or outstanding that person is and the case that you can make for them, the better. So take any opportunity you can to get press written about you or a project you've done, or again, like submitting yourself to festivals to win awards, to the Annie Awards, to the VES Awards, anything like that will help us, help you.
Can
So-
I steal the
yeah.
mic and actually I have a question for
Yeah.
you too, and hopefully if any of you in the audience can chime in. So the question I have is something that it was a conversation that brought up when we visit one of the schools in New York City. As a woman in animation, we're trying to do school outreach, and one of the questions the student asked, we really don't have an answer. I don't think there's any perfect answer, but students are asking, when they're going into interview or in the work environment, they already have a position in the studio and they're confronted with a conflict, whether or not it's harassment or anything. How do they deal with a situation like that? Do they just say no right away and walk away because they're also might lose their jobs? And who do they go and talk to? Do you have any advice on that? I know it's a difficult
sorry.
question, sorry.
It's a
loaded
case-by-case thing, I know. We're a smallish studio, and we have a pretty open door policy. There are a number of people they can come and talk to, and we'll take care of the situation for them. If it just depends on what it is, But were you gonna answer that? It is
Lisa,
kind of
a
loaded.
major company studio, you should have a supportive HR department that that's where you really should go, because sometimes you're of course, like, you want to go to your supervisor potentially, and that might be the best case for a certain scenario. It might be the worst case for a certain scenario, but your HR team should be supportive and should be a safe place for anyone, so.
Tuition costs are rising everywhere, it sounds like, and it's a real problem. And I'm just kind of curious what you think, what kind of problems this is causing, and how it's affecting diversity in terms of who's coming into schools, and then obviously who's coming out of them.
Another really loaded
It's
Yeah,
a
that's
loaded
a
question for sure, but
question.
Yeah, I mean, when at least in the U.S., most of the top schools are private, so you're looking at anywhere between $30,000 to $60,000 a year, and so then you're cutting off your people who can't afford to go to a school like that. So then it's what are either the large companies doing to support sponsorships and scholarships and things like that? What are the schools doing to bring people in that can't afford to go to their school? And I think that's a universal socioeconomical
Yeah.
issue that we have in the industry right now, because it's a constant conversation of bringing people in from diverse backgrounds, but if those diverse backgrounds aren't going to those schools, then where's your pool?
I know,
Your pool of candidates is limited when you're only getting so many people.
I thought it was really smart in the USC study this morning for them to point out people of color and where they fell into these statistics. And I can't help but wonder, we have 65% of animation students are women, how that's affected, and how we're going to have more people of color as part of our business, starting sort of at the ground level, the school level.
I mean, one advice I can give it to students is that don't be afraid to ask either scholarship or any opportunities, because if you just sit back and you're in front of your computer and thinking someone will discover me one day, Yes, someone will discover you one day, only if you put yourself out there, whether it's social media or in person. You know, we at SVA, we're really fortunate that we do support talent with scholarship, and we do have some sort of freedom to, I mean, within limited range, we do have freedom to really diversify the talent that we're bringing in. So that's, and I'm hoping that will be across, but then you also looking at institutions, they're not private, then they definitely have limited funds to be able to do that. But I would say when you're looking for schools or opportunities, don't be afraid to ask and ask for more. Because the worst thing that can happen is they just say no. But at least you do ask and do that diligent, it will help you.
It's actually really true. I went to CalArts a long time ago, and I remember just going into, it was a guy named Frank Terry at the time, saying, hey, do you guys have more money for scholarships? He's like, yeah, sure, what do you need? I'm not kidding. And then every semester after that, I would come in, he was like, what do you want? How much do you need? I'm like, I don't know, what do you guys have? But no, I don't mean to be cute about it, but it is literally just a matter of asking sometimes. I think students put these people and these companies and even their schools on a pedestal that it's really just a bunch of individual people trying to figure out how to help each other. And sometimes if you don't know what the person needs, they can't really help you.
Yeah, but also I was going to follow up with, you know, in terms of studio also, is probably talk to your supervisor and what you want to do in the future. Be vocal about it and people will help you. But the other thing is the fact that you're asking for more, also don't be diligent and really create good work. You know, it's one thing you're asking, but it's the other thing that are you actually producing, also giving back. And once you graduate, how do you go back and give it back to the community too? So many steps instead of just asking too.
Yeah. We have 5 minutes left. Is this been, oh great, we have a question. Is this, okay.
It's more for the students, really. Obviously, internships are great, but the financial burden is also great when you go to a city like London, I'm sure New York. So, Cecile, does that influence where you do your internship? And also, do you think that studios should be doing more to support the students financially?
To do more, sorry?
Do you think the studios should be doing more for students to support them financially in order for them to do an internship in a very expensive city?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if they, I mean, yeah, of course, obviously, the studios should give the student a way to support their living in the city, at least during the internship. I didn't have a problem personally because I was doing my internship in Paris. I was living in Paris, so it was not a problem for me. But I think. I mean, for it goes with the cost of the studies. It's a support that every people from the industry should try to give more to equalize the chances for everyone. But I totally agree. Sorry, did I answer the question? I'm not sure. Is there something else?
Yeah, the other one was, does it influence your decision on where you go?
Did it influence? Actually, no. I mean, it depending on the studio. If it's a great opportunity and I need to spend a lot of money. I mean, if I know in the future I'm gonna have a feedback from it and I need a sacrifice in the present, I would do the sacrifice. I think. But also, if you have a great opportunity, maybe it's worth the sacrifice. But think also that any opportunity is, I mean, sometimes, I mean, for a studio, for a 2 months internship, I don't know, I mean, what I want to say is every experience is good to take. And even if you don't have the experience in the big studios, you're gonna learn a lot for sure. And maybe it's even better because if you are in a smaller studio, you can see other aspects, maybe have more responsibilities. So yeah, just be positive. Any whatever the opportunities you have, you're gonna have a lot to learn from it, and it's gonna be very enriching, hopefully.
We have time for one more. Has this been helpful, students? All right.
Wait,
Would
can
you-
I advertise my panel for tomorrow?
Yeah, go for it.
I have a panel tomorrow, 11:30 for, I have 4 different studios. They're gonna talk about helping you in terms of, really this year, we're actually gonna really dive into the reels and how do you put together portfolios. So if you have time, come join tomorrow, 11:30. Yes.
Deb, you have anything you want to close up?
Talk about the internship.
Yeah, I think I
Any
was gonna
panel
there.
plugs?
Just, well, yes, I will. Tomorrow at 2:30 is our Spies in Disguise music talk. It's at the Bonlou, at the Petite Salle. But also, I just wanted to close out by saying I have seen a huge shift in the amount of women and even diversity in the junior level internship applicants and people coming in from a junior level. In fact, this year, our internship is 74% female, so
Wow.
I mean, it's a huge difference. It had been hovering 50-50 for the last 3 years before that, and so to see that shift of just it being 74% female, I was like, whoa, this is crazy and amazing at the same time.
And speaking of shifts, just in doing the work that I do with the student committee, I feel like I have the low-hanging fruit in terms of getting to 50-50 by 2025. Because of the kinds of students that I'm seeing out there, they're so different than when I was in school. Even 10 years ago, there's a sort of a ferocity and like a courage that I haven't seen before. So I know you guys are going to help us get there and keep doing what you do.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's it. On the nose. Pictures.
Oh.
Oh. Sorry, I gave you that cue.
Music in between these panels.
Sorry, I threw in like a curved question.
Oh, no, this is great.
I'm sorry, I didn't remember
Thank you.
the question you asked me. Was like, I should know what to tell.
Oh, no. I kind of moved around, and honestly, my blood sugar caught up to me. It was like 15 minutes in. Like, it was like, sweat.
Oh, no.
It was useful. I mean, mentioning students out there it's just great. That
Yeah, I think
we have
it's
the young.
and mostly students.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah.
I opened up on that position 2 years ago, and I know I love it. I mean, it's very different. I know I really learned a lot. Actually, I learned from 2 days.
Guys. Thank you. I don't know if she was kidding when she said that.
Oh yeah, I mentioned.
that.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
How are you feeling?
I'm so sick. Can I like
Yes.
shake your elbow?
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Yeah. I feel like I know all about you.
So Have you been in town a few days?
Just,
Hey, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
I'm Natalie. I'm really
nice
sick,
to
so
meet you.
nice to
What do
meet
you have? What do you illness with?
I went down into the catacombs healthy, and I came up with the plague. So
Like fever and everything?
today was like fever and nausea. It was just a cold until today, but
Ugh.
yeah, I don't want anyone else to get this.
Yeah, please stay
I'm gonna stay over here.
closer to Elizabeth.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're missing one more human.
Here.
Oh, yeah, Jill's supposed to be here. Oh, there's Jill. Can we wait for Jill? This way, that way. We're going to come. Hey, Jill.
Hi, how are you? Or Allison?
Yeah. Jill.
Okay.
Do you guys want to introduce yourselves, or do you want me to do it?
You could do it.
How do you pronounce your last name?
Nora Gat.
Norrigat.
Yeah.
Norrigat.
Like a bored cat. Nora Gat.
Norrigat. Norrigat. If I butcher it, just course correct. Norrigat.
Congratulations on your show. I'm good. So many people were like, oh,
I just need to get your bio. Do you want me to read your whole bios?
I don't know. Do you want to read
I have them. What is that? That? This one. Norrigat. Norrigat. I'm screwed. I was like, I got everybody else. Norrigat.
Yeah.
Norrigat. I have to spell it out.
I'm gonna end up calling you something.
Did you come
Tracy,
straight to
ready?
Annecy, or did you? Okay.
Shall we start?
So I landed in Geneva.
All right, guys, ready to start?
Taxi to
Sweet.
Nice. It's pretty, isn't it?
It's really pretty.
Welcome to this panel. I'm Allison Mann. I'm VP of Creative Strategy at Sony Animation. We have Natalie Norgat. She is a cartoonist and writer from Portland, Oregon. After graduating from the University of Oregon, she drew comics and created commercial storyboards at Heloscope Studios. Natalie has collaborated with great companies like Marvel Comics, White & Kennedy, Nike, Image Comics, Oni Press, Lombardi, and Dark Horse. Her work has been nominated for an Eisner Award, GLAAD Media Award, and Oregon Book Award. She's directed the short film Exchange Student, which will premiere at Annecy. She's very sick, and she's here,
Yeah.
and she's alive, and just came back from on a train ride, right?
Yes. I have a cough drop in my mouth. I'll try not to make gross sounds. Sorry.
No, make the gross sounds. It will engage them. Next, we have Elizabeth Ito. Ah. She is a 15-year veteran of the animation industry. She has worked for many different studios on the TV, feature, and commercial projects. Her many credits include supervising director on Adventure Time, feature storyboard artist on Hotel Transylvania, Astro Boy, and the SpongeBob movie. In 2017, she won an Emmy for directing Adventure Time. Elizabeth is currently working at Netflix and developing City of Ghosts, a hybrid documentary-style show about ghosts who live in Los Angeles. Anything you want to add? That's good?
No, you did a good job.
All right. Moving on to Jill. Is a 27-year veteran of animated feature films. She has made a career as an animator in both 2D and 3D formats, a character designer, visual development artist, storyboard artist, head of story, writer, director, executive producer. Anything else you want to add? Her credits include Toy Story, A Bug's Life, and Toy Story 2. for which she designed the beloved cowgirl Jessie. She is currently in production at DreamWorks Pearl Studio, filming Abominable. God, as a writer, director, Abominable is set to premiere September 2020. Yes. Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about intergenerational perspective on belonging. So the makeup of the workplace today is very different to that of the past in terms of age, gender, ethnicity, attitude, and behavior. Because of this, it's important that diverse perspectives and voices are included in any setting, including our creative space, in order to foster a societal culture of patience, appreciation, and understanding. So, audience, I need some participation first. By a show of hands, who have felt more engaged, willing to challenge yourself, and more open to change at work when you have a sense of belonging? Raise your hand. Now, how many have quit their job when they haven't felt and went to another company? Really? You guys all stayed even if you didn't belong? All right. So our objective with our time today is to discuss the importance of diverse perspectives among generations and what working together means today in the animation industry. So our first question is, belonging is the invitation that unleashes the breadth of human potential. Do you feel you've been invited to help influence and make impact in your area of expertise? Why or why not? Jill, you want to start off?
Sure. I think, as Allison said, I've been in this industry for almost 29 years, actually. And I feel like at the beginning of my career as a storyboard artist and an animator at Pixar, I really did feel a sense of belonging there. I have to say, as one of the few females there, I felt like the company said, you know, we need female perspectives here. We're so glad you're here. That's in story and in animation. And I do feel like it's been kind of an interesting journey as my career has progressed. And I feel like once I reached the level of director, things changed a little bit for me. And I think instead of asking other people, you know, do you think I belong here? I had to start asking myself, do I belong here? And I think that difference is kind of important, because as a female in this industry, if you become a director or you get into the higher positions, honestly, sometimes people are waiting to answer that question. They're a little more skeptical. You might have some support singing, yes, you belong here. You might have some people waiting to see if you belong there. And so I think I had to start answering that question for myself and saying, do I have enough experience? Yes. Do I have the talent? I hope so. I think so. And then, is there a need for more diverse voices in this industry? And the answer is yes. So then you say, hell yes, I belong, right? So that's how I answered that question for myself.
Fantastic. And how about you, Elizabeth?
I mean, I would say, like, I mean, my experience is a little different than that. Like, I think someplace like Pixar, like, I didn't necessarily see that as someplace where I was being invited. It kind of felt more like it would be a challenge to try to get hired there for me personally, just because my sensibilities and everything, like the things that I like to do, the kinds of things that I think are funny, the kind of storytelling I like to do, I think it really took a while for me to figure out where that was going to be, because sort of that part of me is a little bit different than what traditionally is aimed for in like a lot of the studio spaces. So I think it was just looking for those opportunities where I did feel a sense of belonging. So it's a combination of like being invited to be on a project that had something that I could contribute to it, but also just recognizing when it wasn't the right fit, which I guess happened a lot at the beginning. It's just figuring out like, oh, this isn't the right type of project for me. So I think it's like, it's a combo of you have to kind of search for what you know you're good at or what you identify with, and then yeah, just getting better at recognizing where that is.
I have the least experience out of this table. I've only had a job at one studio and then freelance. But yeah, I felt like I didn't belong because I didn't go to like the right school. I didn't go to an art school, and I didn't break in until I was almost 30. And when it happened, I was like, oh, are you guys sure I belong here? Are you sure? I'm pretty sure I don't belong here. So it's been a pleasant surprise the last 4 years, really.
Do you guys tend to, I mean, you kind of mentioned this a little bit, but waiting for other people to kind of decide for if you belong, and then getting to a point of, yes, I do belong? Like, Natalie, as somebody who's just breaking in, like, has that been a struggle for you?
Yeah, in some ways, you know, showing up at a studio the first day with somebody who just graduated from CalArts and they're doing the handshake like through the hall, like half the people they meet, oh, you know so-and-so? Oh, yeah, I taught that class, I remember you. And I'm like, hi, I come from comics, you know? But yeah, that doesn't last forever. And I feel like I've been learning on the job instead of learning at school. So I've been, you know, storyboarding for almost 4 years in the studio, but there will still be like a term that comes up or a camera movement that comes up, and I have to be like, what's that? But people are nice about it, so it's still possible to learn on the job.
Do you guys feel like when you're having a sense of not belonging, maybe, how much of it is it projecting out and then projecting in? So is it more of like imposter syndrome on yourself and something that you have to overcome, and no matter what stage you are at your career, or is it building confidence over time where you've seen enough and you're like, I know who I am and I feel secure in that? And then if it is that, how long did it take you to kind of overcome and feel that confidence?
I can say that just to echo a little bit of what Elizabeth said, I think as I've been in the industry longer, I do feel like for me, it's been really important to find the project that I relate to, a story that I know I can tell strongly, something that has elements within it that maybe echoed my own life, so I can be an authority with that story. It's not as much about studio for me as it is story, and I don't take that lightly because I find family with the studios that I have worked with, and I've worked with many, but I think it's really important because these films last so long, at least in feature, it takes 3, 4, hopefully not too much longer than years, to do. So I think those studios do become your family and your support. So I think it's important to be on a project like that, but for me, I've found that I have to be in a place that I feel like I belong and then claim that for myself. And I think because there will always be people who, you know, whether you're female or male, but I think it has been more challenging for females, that will look at you and kind of wonder if, you know, make you question yourself. And I think you can't go through your career, especially in this industry, questioning that. You have to know inside your gut and tell yourself, yes, I feel like I belong here. I'm going to stake my claim and work hard.
I mean, I think I always have imposter syndrome. So it's sort of like just finding people to work with who know how to inspire confidence in you rather than making you doubt what you're doing. I think that's like the key, really, is that the people who are around you believe in you. Like even sometimes when you don't know if you can do it, like that's been sort of the most important thing that's really allowed me to find the projects where I was able to grow and get that feeling of belonging, I think.
Yeah, definitely imposter syndrome. Well, I like to treat each, you know, project that I work on as a learning opportunity. So there's kind of a way to positively foster the imposter syndrome, like, oh, what am I going to learn this year? Let's use this as an opportunity to get better at these 3 things I don't think I'm great at yet. Surrounding yourself by supportive people, and also trying to help the next generation or people who are a little bit less experienced than you. it really, for me, it puts it into perspective. Like, what did I want when I was in that position? What can I give them to make it easier for them? And then try to talk to myself with the same kindness that I would talk to somebody in that position.
So kind of echoing of what you guys are saying, and it touched a little bit on of what you guys were talking about, but what are common misconceptions people have around belonging at different career stages? And how can we combat these misconceptions and communicate more effectively? So I think some of the solves that you just mentioned are good, and like how do you bring people along for the ride? So what are things that you've seen in different stages? And then even as a student, I think that could be part of your career as well.
I think for me, it's been asking a lot of questions. Like, I don't think you have to be 100% qualified at any given stage. So, for instance, when I made the switch from animation into story, I knew nothing about story. So I just asked a lot of questions, and I found mentors within those departments that I could go to and ask and have them look at my work and critique it. I think that's really important at every stage, whether you're writing, directing, that you have to have kind of confidants around you who will give you straight feedback and criticism that maybe are aside from the studio or maybe within that department, but off to the side. You have to support yourself with friends. So,
Allies.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
allies.
I think there's something really true about raising people up who are maybe at a lower level than you, and just figuring out how to bring them up and foster what they need to make them better. I mean, that's really vague to say, but I think, yeah, I mean, for me, like right now, it's like I'm working with people who are first-time directors on my show, and I think it's just giving them the knowledge that it's okay, you're going to make some mistakes, and it's going to feel like you don't know what you're doing at the beginning, but just sort of like figuring out how to help them be directors and just like what they need, I think. Yeah, like just kind of helping them to figure out what to do, and maybe like reflecting on what did you kind of need when you were in that same spot? Like, how did you learn to do that? Because you don't kind of just know how to do it. So yeah, just figuring out how to help people.
Yeah. When you're the one in that position, find as many allies as you can. The artist manager who really, has your trust and who you can vent to or ask questions or express, what you want in your career without fear of it spreading around or like judgment or anything. Or, I had an amazing experience working with a head of story, Josie Trinidad, who recognized that some people are introverts, but they might have a great idea. They don't want to stay in front of 20 other people. And, someone like that, she can come to you individually after a meeting and say, what did you really think? That kind of thing. And then when you're not in that position anymore, but you have control over, someone else's experience, just to try and remember as much as possible about what it felt like and make it better for them.
And so as we're finding our tribe and getting our allies, our mentors, we're becoming leaders, we're trying to figure out what does a leader mean. Do you ever mask or downplay any aspect of your physical, cultural, spiritual, or emotional self at work?
That's an interesting. I think.
And go.
Yeah, I was gonna like. I would say sometimes yes, and I think that I feel like I'm a fairly emotional person, and I go at a lot of my job with that kind of passion, and I think oftentimes I just have to keep a bottle on some of that, or I'll fall apart in a mess at work. But I do feel like it's okay to have that passion and to actually be honest with it, because I think when you do kind of share how passionate you are and emotional towards a certain subject, it tends to really resonate with your crews. And I would say that's also important just in this conversation that we're having about the feeling of belonging, is that I think sometimes when you make it about the passion and the work and you try to take it away from a little bit of that personal insecurity, if you can kind of dive into the work and always make it about the work. And that's whether you're a mentor or someone who is being mentored. Just about being better at your craft, better at your skill, and talking about the story or talking about that skill set, whether it's layout or storyboarding or animation, then I think really you're just helping people to grow in what they truly want to do, what their passion is. So I would say we shouldn't be afraid of it. Have I been afraid to show some of that before? Sure. But the older I get, the more I think it's actually kind of a power of yours if you can wield it, your vulnerability in the right way. You know, it doesn't have to make you feel like someone who's weak.
Finding your superpower.
You're right, right.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it's taken me a while to figure out that vulnerability isn't a weakness, and like showing emotion doesn't mean that you're irrational or anything negative. Really, it's actually better because it kind of lets people understand something about what's important to you and just that you have feelings. And like it's not necessarily better to just be a robot. It's just a different way of being, but that it can help to allow people in to kind of see that. And I think it allows your crew and just people around you to feel closer to you and that they understand what you're trying to do better.
I guess what comes to mind for me is health. Physical health as a storyboard artist. If you develop carpal tunnel or tendonitis, some people don't tell their supervisor because they're worried that they're going to be seen as, you know, having a cap on their potential, when they really need to tell somebody and get help and like have a little bit of leeway with deadlines. Mental health for sure, which, you know, affects a lot and is a part of who we are, but, you know, doesn't feel like something you can just walk into a room and say, I feel great, I'm seeing a new therapist. How are you?
You don't want to share that with the world? Do you feel like bringing vulnerability like helps though with the storytelling? I think as stories are developing within our industry, I think the accessibility and the authenticity of who we are, no matter what stage you are in your career or what your age is, becoming a huge importance to the development of our animation community. Would you guys say that that has been in your experience, and do you feel like it's helping evolve our storytelling as well?
I would say definitely. You know, I think as we've kind of been saying, if you show your passion towards the area that you're in, whether it's animation, storyboarding, or storytelling on a bigger level, people want to work for people with passion. I think that's the thing, is they want to hear the vision, they want to be part of the vision. The more they know about the vision, the more they feel like they can contribute because they're trying to get on board with that. And I think if you don't let people in, the downside of that could be that they just are working and they're kind of phoning it in. And what you want to do is instill passion for a whole crew, right? Whether it's your story crew or whether it's your entire crew. You know, I think that instilling that passion and the vision actually spreads that kind of feeling in the crew, and they get excited too. So there's no downside to that.
I mean, I think you have to be vulnerable in order to create really unique projects. So if we didn't do that, then I feel like you would just keep getting kind of formulaic stories. I mean, which sometimes can be entertaining and work, but I think the truly original and heartfelt stuff, like people recognize when you've allowed yourself to let that out creatively. So I think it does make a big difference as far as like the variety of projects that we'll see. Like if people are allowed to appreciate that, then I think it'll just only benefit the types of projects that we see.
Yeah. Well, certainly to work with other people, it's nice if you're seeing a larger part of who everybody is and feel comfortable being yourself in the room. But even in terms of the work, like Elizabeth said, it's the complicated stuff, the sticky stuff, that's the really juicy story stuff, the stuff that's difficult to talk about or that you don't normally see on screen. That can be a really good place to find something unique or very emotional for your story.
And I think that plays a really huge part, like being able to bring your perspective into the story and like not feel like what you're doing doesn't have any weight or value. I think sometimes we play a part of, I've only have this much experience, so my voice shouldn't be heard and I should just be sitting in the back. But I think in essence of the way that our community is broken down, it's so important that all of us come to the table and all of our ideas are being heard. In every culture, generations cycle through periods of optimism, skepticism, prosperity and recession, war and peace. Those cycles shape generations everywhere. Since our jobs have global reach, and even more so as the platforms for communicating and sharing our what we're creating is growing, how do we build a more inclusive community work environment that allows us to be authentic to who we are?
I think that's in supporting each other and really being okay to hear different kinds of stories and be open to that. And I think sometimes that's not always easy to be open for different kinds of storytelling, but I think we have to be, because like you said, things change in the world. I remember when Harry Potter came out, it felt the war was going on at that point. There was a lot of families, kids that felt unempowered, and I think a movie like that where children were empowered and they didn't listen to the adults, they went rogue, and they ended up saving the day. That was a message that was resonant at that time. So I think we have to be open for what's happening in the culture and the time and listen to the voices that are part of that or experiencing those things. So I think it's important. One thing to say, too, it's not always easy being vulnerable, and I think as a woman, I think it's important to say this, is that, you know, this movie that's coming out in September is an original idea of mine, which has a young Asian girl with a violin and a Yeti that does magic, and sometimes pitching something like that makes you feel like everyone's going to think this movie is for 2-year-olds. So I think that's important to say, is that sometimes when women pitch something that's more emotional, I feel like sometimes the audience or the studios feel like it's automatically going to skew young, and so I think you have to keep your vision and keep telling it strongly and with passion and get the story ideas across. But I would I would be lying if I didn't say sometimes that's a challenge.
I can see that.
I mean, I don't know if this answers your question, but I mean, I was thinking, like, I guess it's just making sure that we're looking at stories and voices that maybe aren't being lifted up yet, or just sort of like there's not enough inclusive media out there for everybody yet. I mean, I think we're making headway, but I still think there's a long way to go as far as like looking at everybody who kind of wants to tell a story about themselves and see themselves represented. Like, it's still very limited. So I think it's just being really conscious of that and sort of like allowing, not only like looking for those stories, but also looking for those people whose stories they are, like, so getting more of those people in storyboard and director positions where we have more of I guess just a more diverse range of who were like letting helm those stories and whose voices were really lifting up.
I agree with both of them. I would just add making sure that you're still exposed to a lot of things beyond just animation. Excuse me. Making sure that you're exposing yourself to theater, to books, to the news, to everything. So, oh my gosh.
Natalie.
Excuse me, thank you. That'll have to do for my answer, I'm sorry.
You don't want to keep going? We'll give you a break.
Thank you.
So as far as like kind of looking back of where your career is now, and if you could go and give yourself advice to younger yourself, it could be when you were 8, it could be when you were 16, whenever you first decided this was your career path, what advice would you give to yourself?
For me, I'd probably say to believe in myself more. I felt like a little bit, I was always preparing, but never thought I was ready. And I think what you realize now looking back is you're never fully ready. You learn because you dive in, then you have to learn. That's what makes you grow. And so I think what I would say to my younger self or to people here is never think you're too young to have a great idea. Never think you're too young to dive in and do something great. Don't wait too long, because when you finally have confidence, then you realize your career has 15 years left maybe. So I would say dive in with all your gut and try to find that confidence within you or find it from the people around you. But don't let the fact that you're not fully ready for something stop you.
I do find that from talking to people throughout my career, and that's what I do, is talk to people all day long, and a lot of them will often wait for a studio or a company to validate them as a creative, and oftentimes their work is so good, and their ideas are so good, and sometimes it's like, just go out and do it. Like,
Right.
don't wait for that validation, and like find that inner confidence and that inner drive to tell your story. And I think everything else will kind of follow. And I think to that point, it's like sometimes it's hard to know where you might be overstepping or what you're supposed to learn or do. But I don't know, like.
Let me give a dumb, super corny analogy, but it stuck with me. I had a mentor once tell me, because I was sketching. She said, are you going to make a book with that? Or are you going to try to, turn that into a show? And I said, no, I'm not ready. I'm still working on this. I'm still working on it. And again, excuse me for the corny analogy, but it has a good visual, and it's well represented. She said, what part of a rose is the prettiest part? What phase of a rose is the prettiest? And I said, I don't understand. She said, is it when it's a bud and it has all this potential? Is it when it's at full bloom, right before the petals fall off? She said, every phase of a rose is beautiful, and you need to realize that everyone has to grow and change, and every stage of that has its own beauty. So don't be afraid to claim that,
I guess I would tell myself, don't worry if it didn't work out the first time for every single thing you do. You fight really hard, and so eventually things will work out really well, but you just have to be patient, and it doesn't, for example, with CalArts, it took me 3 times to apply and then finally get in. But the first time I was devastated, but then it finally worked out. And it's actually the same with developing shows. I've tried to develop shows a couple times before this, and it didn't really work out in the end. But I think for the better. I don't think, if I think about those shows having gone at the times when I was first developing them, I don't know whether I would have ended up working on something that I really loved at the end of it. That's not to say it couldn't have worked out, but I think it's worked out pretty well, having waited for this opportunity. So.
Nice.
How are you feeling, Natalie?
Okay, we can try it slowly. Okay. I would tell my younger self to do things that I really care about instead of chasing what I think is going to work or what I think other people are going to like or what I think is popular. The projects that I've worked on that have the most enduring satisfaction for me are the ones where I thought, nobody's asking for this. I don't think anybody wants this, but I really want to make this, Mm-hmm. And I would just tell myself earlier, do that. That's going to take you in an interesting direction.
It's kind of that, bringing it back to the authenticity of your own voice and doing stuff that's maybe not for yourself. I think there's some importance to that. Did you feel like when you were starting, I know for myself, sometimes ignorance is bliss. So when you start off and you don't know any better and you don't have the habits and you don't know all the humans, that might be really intimidating, that you don't have the self-consciousness of oh, well, that's already been done. So, or you just don't know. So you're willing to kind of try out everything, and and then you get further in your career and it's almost oh, I can't say that, or I can't do that, or this human's in the room, and all those kind of the ignorance bliss of, and it's almost like being a toddler. It's you don't, in the beginning you just don't know, and you're willing to try, and everything's an experiment, and then all of a sudden it all changes, and you become your sense of self comes through. And then, I don't know, maybe you get a little bit further in your career and you're like, well, I've done all the bullshit now, and so now I can go back to where I started and have more of like take more of risks and like be more confident. So how has like each stage, like, have you experienced that?
I mean, I definitely have. I remember I had a sketchbook at Cal Arts, and it was my first sketchbook. And I used to go, to the zoo and sketch in public and go to cafes. And I was thinking, this is great. This is the beginning of my career. And wow, these drawings look pretty good. And then I saved that sketchbook because years later I look back and I'm like, these are terrible drawings. And I let people see them, like, because I didn't know they were terrible. And but that ignorance is bliss. It kept me going. It gave me drive to keep going because I loved it. And because I couldn't see how far I had to go, I just kept going, right? Until I finally got there, I should say. The other side of that, when you said, then you advance in your career and you start to worry. I remember someone telling me it's almost like you're crossing a train trestle and you're walking across those rungs, and the higher up you get, the more vertigo you get. So you take, your steps get a little shakier. I think that's an interesting phase because you feel like I have far to fall backwards, and yet how do I move forward? And I think that phase is a little bit of a trap because you start to think about a little bit what Natalie was talking about, what other people think I should do, as opposed to what you authentically feel you are drawn to. So I think if you keep asking yourself that question and not saying, well, they're giving me this career choice and it could advance me on a show that I hate, you should say no. And just have faith that, as Elizabeth said, that the right opportunities will come along.
How do you say no thank you?
And not burn a bridge?
Yes.
I think there's ways to do that elegantly, and I think even, again, going back to the vulnerability and honesty, saying, you know what, I want to have passion for everything I work on, and this project I just feel like isn't the right fit for me. But thank you so much. Please keep in touch. I mean, I think there's ways to let your honesty about what you're drawn to actually help you in having that conversation.
I mean, I would say ignorance is bliss, kind of. I think, right when I got out of Cal Arts, I don't know whether I expected the struggle to be so real about, getting into the industry and just what it's like working in the industry compared to being in school, where you're just coming up with your own ideas and making your own stuff. And then just the disconnect between everything that you don't know yet when you go into working, just practically speaking, you don't really know how to run a TV show, you don't know how to direct a feature, because who would know how to do that unless they've tried it? So I guess it's that thing where you kind of feel like you know where you want to be, but you're not there yet, and seeing that gap is kind of I don't know, it's just a thing that you don't really realize until after you've worked for a while, and then you think, oh wow, now I've got some experience. And I think reflecting back, if I think about what it would have been like for me personally, getting a show right out of school, I think I would have lost it, because it's just so much, it's so much work and so much stuff that there's no way to be prepared for that.
Nice. I really relate to that feeling of being able to see where you want to be or how you want to be able to draw, what you want your skills to be, and feeling the despair of the distance between you and there. But the good news is when you feel that, that means that you know where you're going. You can see what's lacking, and that means that you're going to be able to achieve it. In art, when I'm super content with the way that I'm drawing, I'm not improving very much. But when I'm oh, why can't I draw like that? Those are the periods when I'm actually going to start learning very quickly, because I'm looking for a new way to do things, and I'm looking for what I'm lacking. I think I would just add, life is long, so it's okay to not get your dream job right out of school, and there's nothing wrong with having life experience. I found out, you know, what storyboarding was when I was 21, and I was already like, oh, all of my college funds are spent on a business degree from the University of Oregon. Okay, I guess I'm not going to work in animation. And I took a very roundabout path to get here, but I'm grateful for that because those experiences are still things that I use today, and nothing is a waste of time if you can learn from it.
And so with kind of that in mind, and maybe some actionables that people can kind of take back, and we talked about mentorship as well, but what are the most critical changes that we must make to face the future effectively in supporting individuals at different stages in their career life, or in life in general?
I think it's interesting because we have to look for opportunities to mentor, and I know there's a lot of programs starting off right now, especially women in animation, women in film, to grant opportunities to be mentors. But I think sometimes folks that need mentors are shy to ask, and I think those of us who maybe could be mentors sometimes are busy and don't think, because somebody's not asking for help, we don't go and say, would you like to have lunch, you know, or something like that, to make those connections. And so I think it goes both ways a little bit, but I think that having great mentors around you, and that's men and women, by the way, it's important at every phase. I have mentors right now, you know, in my life as well, people who are willing to read scripts and tell me how terrible it is. And I'm so grateful for that, right? So I think that mentorship, both directions, is really important.
I guess it's both the mentorship thing, and then for me, I won't stop talking about what it's been like to become a mom and working, and I think allowing for just people to have families and women to be able to have kids and still have stuff workable for them, like where they can still go back to work if they want to, and not sort of making it feel as epic as it felt when I had to go back to work, which it wasn't that long ago, but it's still like, I think it's just making sure women have the resources to know that it's possible to do both, like to have a family and be a mom and also be a director, do things like that, that it doesn't exclude you all of a sudden from that possibility in life. Like deciding that you want a family won't
Hinder you.
Yeah.
Nice. That's inspiring, because for me it looks like only super women can do that, but there are so many great role models in animation. I guess tangentially, what you made me think of, oh darn, yes, that not all directors have the same personality. When I didn't work in animation yet, the directors that I would see getting interviewed for film and for animation had very big personalities, very flashy, very loud, and I'm not like that. But now that I work in animation, I've met all kinds of different directors. You don't have to have like one personality or fit one mold. There are many different styles that work, so you can do it, and if you're in a hiring position, don't count somebody out because they don't have that personality. It's not that big of a deal. In terms of keeping the doors open and opening them wider, just making things available on the internet as often as possible, education, mentorship, job opportunities, because it's extremely restrictive to only have opportunities in expensive cities like Los Angeles or schools in the US. And we're missing out on a lot of really great voices whenever we restrict things by cost or geographic location or language.
Can I speak to that a little bit?
Of course.
One thing I'll echo with Natalie, we get asked a lot of students, I think, feel like because they don't have access to a CalArts, which is ridiculously expensive nowadays, or some of the bigger studios, that they have no opportunities. And the fact is, as Natalie said, there's so many training programs online, like Animation Mentor. You can, for a fraction of the cost, you can get one-on-one attention from someone who is in the industry working. You can meet with groups. You can download software for a really inexpensive price and learn almost anything now, and get jobs in the industry. In fact, some of our animators at DreamWorks, they came straight off from Animation Mentor, straight into being animators on a big feature film. So there are opportunities. That's important to say, because I think a lot of people feel like in the United States, if you come from the Midwest, you feel like that. And I know if you are from a different country where you're not near an animation school, you feel like you might have to, do that, but you don't.
And I think the dialogue, especially around Natalie's story, is important about pivoting, and like you're never, like there's no stage of your life where your pivoting isn't allowed. I think for a long time, it's like you start out at a certain age and you have to grow, but I think the dialogue around that probably needs to shift. So like, what are different approaches that we can continue to help people feel like they belong, and the importance, and continuing with the messaging of the importance of belonging? Like, how do we continue with kind of opening those doors?
Do you guys want to start with this one?
Stumped you, finally.
I know. I think sometimes it just goes back to that question we've kind of been, or the statement we've kind of been talking about following your passion, and you'll find a place where you belong as long as you follow that passion. I think, I came from a family where my dad's a doctor, my mom was a nurse, my sister went into law school, and then I announced that I wanted to become an artist. My parents thought I would end up, poor in the street, or maybe back at home on their couch for the rest of their life. And but it was the only thing that I knew. Drawing or coming up with ideas was the only thing I could do all day long on a Saturday without stopping or eating or anything. And so I think if you pursue those things that make you happy, that you have passion for, whether you're pivoting out of a career, we all know many people actually who've pivoted, from being like an engineer into animation. Whether you're pivoting or whether you're just starting out and you think, oh gosh, is animation really gonna work out for me? I think you have to ask yourself, like, what do you want to do with your life? What do you have the passion to do all day long? And what gives you joy,
I mean, I think if we start generating more projects that are from a different perspective, then it gives people the hope that like their stories are important, I think, and whether that inspires them to go into something else or it inspires them to go into animation because they realize it's a vehicle for expressing themselves, I think that'll encourage a broader range of people because they'll feel like it's for them, as opposed to if it just stayed the same, people might not be as interested. But I think as long as people see that their stories and their selves are included in what we're showing, then I think that'll help from just the beginning.
If you have a story that feels a little bit outside of the box or a little fringe, but it's true to you, remember that it's not just for you, that it empowers people to be a little bit more them, that it can open doors just by you saying something that is true for you or like a little bit outside of the mainstream. It opens doors for other people to go further, so please do it.
And there's no better time in history, I think, where there's access to these kinds of shows that could potentially come out, different role models, different types of stories, diversity. There's so much streaming going on right now, so many different platforms, so I think it's perfect time in history to do what they're talking about.
Can you guys give examples of your particular studios of initiatives centered around cultivating a sense of overall belonging?
Well, for us, I mean, what's really exciting, I think, on even just the film that I'm working on is DreamWorks is partnering with Pearl Studios. We have an all Asian cast in a big studio feature for the first time. And what was really important to myself was to, I grew up with the princess movies, but I was a tomboy who liked skateboarding. Princesses don't like camping. They don't make tree houses. They don't like getting dirty. And I felt like it was really, really important to create a role model, like the dream role model that I never got. So the hero in our film is really rough and tumble, and a tomboy leaps before she looks and is the initiator for all the movie. And so as long as we keep looking for those opportunities to provide great role models for everyone, I think, you know, that we'll keep making people feel like they belong and they can relate.
I mean, for me personally, it's just I feel like I'm in a place where I'm being allowed the freedom to do something that is so, like, just, I wouldn't have been able to do anything that's different at another studio. I don't know about every other creator, because each creator has their own thing that they're doing, but I do appreciate that there's a wide range of things that feel like somebody's taking a chance on them and letting somebody try to, letting a team of people figure out, truly figure out how to do different things. So I think that's generally how my studio's been handling it.
At Disney, they like to say a good idea can come from anywhere, and a couple concrete examples of that are after the internal screenings, anyone can give a note, and the director reads that and takes it into consideration. So, you know, good ideas for the movies can really come from anywhere in the studio, regardless of who you are or which department you work in. And the other example is really self-serving. It's the reason that I'm at Annecy. We're presenting 3 short films from a new project called Short Circuit. And the submissions for those shorts are blind. So they take the name off of the submission, they take the department off of the submission, and the shorts that have come out of that program are really cool and different because, I mean, like, Jerry Wynn is presenting one this weekend, and he's a general TD. Brian Menz is presenting one, and he's an animator, and normally there isn't as much of a pipeline to directing from those departments as there is from story. But when we took everyone's names and departments off of the submissions, you really saw, like, the best ideas were coming from all over the studio. So that was really nice.
That's fantastic. And I thought you were Tracy for a minute. I was like, I'll wrap up.
You know, it's worth also adding, I think there is a little bit of a misconception in the industry that that studios won't, like, how do they find ideas, that they have a little group of ideas that represents their studio and they won't look outside the box. But I've found at most every studio I work at, and definitely at DreamWorks, there is an openness to hear new ideas, to actually find a way to pitch them. You might get turned down, but that's the risk we all take, putting ourselves out there. But it's always worth finding an avenue at your studio where you can pitch something, and you never know what's going to happen.
Well, thank you, panelists.
Thank you.
We have 5 minutes, and so we can open up the room for some questions, unless we solved it all for you today. We solved it. Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Way to go, guys. Thanks for hanging.
Absolutely. No, thanks, Allison. That's great.
Thanks for doing this. Yeah.
Great job. I love your answer.
Thanks, you too. I'm so sorry you had to be.
I know. I'm a troll right now, but I'm happy to be here.
One more, guys. Are you guys
And this is the clicker, right? Yeah. You are fantastic. Thank you for doing that all. Yep. And your, is that your bag? You guys were great. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. Well, when we talked about it with Jan, we can. It's up to you. That doesn't want to do that. What do you guys want to do, Amanda? Amanda, what do you guys want to do? It's up to you.
We're just thinking it's not as scary for us to be up here if you want us to be.
Come on up then.
Just because of the nature of it.
It's up to you guys. Come on up. Yeah, sure. Hi, hi. Everybody, Atomic, yeah, huh? Good to see you. Okay. And my slideshow presentation, who knows that? They want to come up actually and sit down. But how do I get my PowerPoint there? I don't think that's not my PowerPoint.
No, I know. You want it up right now?
There's a slide, the beginning slide, the first slide. Yeah. Yep, I will.
Do you want us to move down so that you have an extra space beside you? So
I'm good.
No, just leave that there. Wow, fancy. Fancy. Yay. This also stops from people looking at us as we awkwardly walk up the stairs. Thanks. One less. Yeah. Okay. Actually, thank you.
It's just arrow, right? Just arrow? Yep. Yeah. So I just jump in. Just
Sorry. Amanda, do you want one?
for me. Can we all look this way, guys? Team 5 and focus.
If everybody could take your seats, we'll start with our 3 o'clock talk. Please take your seats. Thank you.
Oh, fancy. Yep. Hello, everyone. My name is Roseanne Tisserand. I am a co-founder and CEO of an independent production company in Vancouver called Flying Kraken Creative Studios. We specialize in content creation and pre-production. I also sit on WIA Vancouver's executive committee, and I'm here to talk about WIA in Vancouver and Women in Views, 5 in Focus, BC Animation. Relating to today's theme, I'm here to talk about 5 in Focus and how it directly responds to belonging. That feeling of being personally accepted, respected, included and supported in the workplace. Why is this initiative different, and where did we start? 5 in Focus began in 2017 by Women in View. Women in View is a Canadian not-for-profit that promotes media diversity on and off the screen. While gathering numbers for a report on live-action women writers, directors, and cinematographers in film and TV, Women in View was having discussions with producers and broadcasters. They found they wanted to hire more women, they didn't know where to find them. Women in View also noticed the numbers they were collecting year over year were not improving, so they decided to change things up and create more action-based initiatives such as 5 in Focus. 5 live-action directors were selected by industry nomination and jury process, with the goal of shining a spotlight on as many women as possible to decision makers. The women were provided professional pitch coaching and how to present themselves and how to present their demo reels. The same industry experts were brought back, and they sat down to hear these women and see their reels. Magic, it worked. Since 2017, Women in View has promoted 12 directors through this program. 5 are currently working on primetime TV series. 4 of them are directing feature films. Interesting note, many decision makers that came back after were surprised at the quality of the talent. Women in View's experience collecting data revealed that women didn't need any more training, they just needed a spotlight to be shining on them. So where did we go from here? We of Vancouver had 3 goals. I'm behind on my slides. There we go. Women in View had 3 goals. We wanted to take that success and adjust the initiative to animation, which is a very different media. We wanted to directly respond to WIA's missions of 50-50 by 2025, advancing women in key creative roles, and we wanted to create and produce an original short film out of Vancouver. We also needed to identify what made 5 in Focus so successful in the first place. We pared it down. Women gain exposure by being nominated and then being seen again by a jury so that those wanting to hire them can find them. Women are taught how to pitch and present themselves, really important, so that they can confidently put themselves forward and create their own opportunities. It is key to so much of this, learning how to talk about yourself. The result? We supersized 5 in Focus. Here it is defined. We would produce a short film in 1 year. We would nominate, then select by jury 5 key creative roles we felt were underrepresented in our community: producer, director, writer, animation director, art director. Within 1 year, the group of 5 women would be tasked to write and make a short film that they would own. And of course, these 5 women all have their own full-time jobs. With our initiative now defined, as always, first on the list, financing. We of Vancouver and Women in View successfully secured financing with Canadian and international corporations and Canadian media-based agencies. We now had a very limited budget, but it allowed us to provide an honorarium for the women and hire crew as needed. We have provided mentorship. In fact, 4 levels of mentorship. Individual support by a mentor specific to their role. For example, Alison Snowden as our director mentor, Jen Dahlman as our producer mentor. We provided community mentorship from Vancouver studios. I can't see my slides. There we go. Sorry. We provided community mentorship from Vancouver studios, voice directors, composers, pipeline TDs, sound designers, and more. We are also fortunate to have an overall short film mentorship with Shirley and Terry from our amazing National Film Board. Lastly, executive producer mentoring. Real-world mentoring on best practices for hiring and defining scope of work, legal, clearances, contracts, insurance, budgeting, accounting, financing, negotiating, soft skills and hard skills of production from script to screen, business and creative. Key for us was also mentoring on tax credits and incorporation. The group was required to incorporate, and they did, as Spectacle 5 films. Why was incorporation important? 2 reasons. We wanted to provide the full producing experience, and secondly, incorporation combined with a film festival screening triggers tax credits for us, meaning it provides funds for round 2 of 5 in Focus. We offered professional pitch coaching again. We included 2 rounds with a professional pitching coach. Round 1, to help the women learn to speak about themselves and own their accomplishments. Round 2 will be all about the film itself in preparation to speak about it at the Spark case study and hopefully other case study panels. Social media support. We included social media in our agreements, in all of the agreements. We did this intentionally and not only to inspire and share what is possible within our community. We wanted to maximize exposure to our amazing sponsors and partners. We wanted to maximize exposure for our participants, making sure that spotlight is shining on these women so they are seen. Spark Film Festival. Working closely with Spark Animation Festival in Vancouver, we were able to provide the opportunity to screen the film in October of 2019 in Vancouver and enter the film into competition. At the Spark Animation Conference, Spectacle 5 will also be featured on a case study panel at the conference. Ownership. After Spark, we then turn the completed film over to the participants. It's their film forever, no strings attached. Although mentoring will continue through the process until they have gone through the full cycle of year ends and tax credit filings. How Spectacle 5 continues on its path will be up to them, although we do know they have plans to stay together and make more films, so that's successful. The last piece, industry market attendance. We will take the 5 participants and their final film to an international animation festival and market in 2020 to help gain further exposure for the participants. An executive producer will join the team to help them network and get exposure to decision makers and learn how our industry works firsthand, top to bottom, financing through distribution. We hope also to participate in a case study panel of their year of making the film while at that festival. Sponsorship. Of course, none of this is possible without these amazing sponsors, companies, and partners. The support for WIA and Women in Views 5 in Focus BC Animation Initiative has been incredible. We have reached out to partners, and some of them have come to us. For their generous financial support, we of Vancouver and Women in View would like to sincerely thank TELUS Story Hive, Creative BC, Microsoft, Telefilm Canada, Canadian Media Producers Association, BC Branch. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Bradley and Toon Boom with Storyboard Pro and Harmony licenses and personal training of the software, Autodesk for Shotgun and Maya licenses, Boughton Law Corporation for all that legal, the Research House for clearances. And of course, we want to thank our passionate industry partners, the amazing National Film Board, Spark Animation Festival and Conference in Vancouver. And it's in October, everybody. That's a hint. Last thanks is to the many studios and artists throughout Vancouver who are passionate about making this possible and understanding the impact it will make for 5 careers and our city. And I know some of them are out here today, and it's just the support we've received from our community is amazing. In summary, recap. How do we supersize 5 in Focus and answer WIA's mission for advancement of women? 5 women receive that all-important credit for a key creative role. 5 women's careers receive true and meaningful advancement. 5 women will have the opportunity to attend a market to pitch with their film and to network with industry executives. Spectacle 5 will have made a film and has plans for more. We are already financed for year 2 to bring us to 10 women advancing. This initiative is scalable to other chapters and communities and to potentially adding other key creative roles such as storyboard supervisors, compositing supervisors, and a bunch more. We're already talking to a composer in Vancouver who wants composers to be included in this list of key creatives. We also want one day to have a film festival of 5 in Focus participants from around the world, and why not? So how does this answer WIA's 50/50 mission? Again, interesting live action numbers from our friends at Women in View. Productions with women showrunners, again, these are live action. Productions with women showrunners had 53% women in the roles of writer, director, and cinematographer. Productions with split gender, 41%. Productions run by men, 14%. What this research demonstrates is the positive impact of women in key creative roles in screen-based media. Put women in these roles, and they hire women. In conclusion, 5 in Focus not only supports the success of these 4 out of 5 women, but it is anticipated that the success of these women will breed success for other women and result in a more representative, balanced, and diverse crew. And now it's time to meet Spectacle 5 Films. Yay. Please welcome, from my left, Amanda Conkin, our producer, Stephanie Blakey, our director, Jen Davro, our writer, Caitlin Sutherland, our animation director. Unable to attend this year, Maisha Moore. Yeah. Unable to attend this year, Maisha Moore, our art director, and Tracy Mack, my co-executive producer. So I've asked each of the women to tell us about themselves and share what this initiative means to them. And I'll start with Amanda.
Thank you, Roseanne. Hi, everybody. As Roseanne mentioned, my name is Amanda Conkin, and I'm the producer for the Five in Focus program this year. Very excited to be here. It's my first big conference with animation. I did the Women in Animation Breaking the Glass Frame Symposium later in 2018. But this is my first big market, and I'm really excited to take the film to the market next year, hopefully. Fingers crossed. We want to come here again. So, I work as a production manager in my everyday at WOW Unlimited Media, so Mainframe Entertainment, which is a version of WOW. It just rebranded this year. And I found my way into animation a little bit in a roundabout way. I went to the University of British Columbia, where I actually studied political science and theater because I wanted to change the world using stories, and I was able to find a theater company that did just that. And I was able to work with them after I graduated with my master's degree. And working in live action or live theater brought me into live action as a producer of web series and some short films and the world's first transgender sitcom called The Switch, which was a fantastic opportunity to work with marginalized communities in Vancouver. And through my interest in film and of all kinds, I then found my way into animation, where I applied for a job at my studio, realizing that the skills were pretty transferable from live action as a producer into production coordination in animation. And I've sort of never looked back. And luckily, in animation, there are so many other opportunities to be able to specialize. Women in animation, as soon as I heard of that, I knew that it was something that could help me advance my career. So I applied to Women in Animation, was able to be part of their mentorship program last year. I think it was their inaugural mentorship program, which was fantastic. And then the first Vancouver Summit for Women in Animation, I heard Roseanne talk about the Five in Focus program and realized that I've always wanted to be a producer, and I have been a producer in short films and live action, and I was curious how I could do that in animation when I really didn't have the experience as a producer in animation. So again, transferable skills. So I was quite happy to be able to step up and say, yes, I have what it takes. I feel I can do this. I just need the opportunity. And what an opportunity it's been. The mentorship we've gotten specifically in this program is fantastic. And we had the opportunity to incorporate our company, as Roseanne was mentioning. So as a producer, one of the things that I never had an opportunity to do before was all the paperwork. I knew it existed, but I hadn't really dived in yet. So we incorporated Spectacle 5 Films this year, having to go through all of the registration and preparing for tax credits. But with an incorporated company, one of the first things I was able to do was apply through Telefilm Canada to come to this conference as a producer of my own company, which was fantastic. And so I'm here because of the Telefilm Canada Pavilion, which is really great, and obviously the women that I wanted to come with, which is fantastic. So I'm here, I'm keep going, I want to produce more things, and as part of this, I feel like I'm in the right track, because only a month after I incorporated my first company, I got to incorporate my second company, because I was brought on board as a producer on a live action short film that was one of 4 short films that was given national funding to create a short over this year from the Harold Greenberg Fund. So I'm on a roll, and I hope I keep going, and it's very much because of this program. So.
Well done.
Thank you, Amanda. And now we'll move on to Stephanie, our director.
I won't touch that anymore. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Stephanie Blakey, and I am working as the director on the Five in Focus animated short film. For my day job, I am a storyboard artist for the last 3 or so years at Atomic Cartoons, based out of Vancouver. And before that, I was freelancing in London, where I went to school. I graduated from the National Film and Television School just outside of London with my grad film, The Last Resort, which I directed over the course of 1 year. It was a paper-cut stop-motion animated film, which I took to festivals all over Europe and the US, and I won the Audience Award at the Austin International Film Festival, tied with The Dam Keeper, which is pretty cool. And then I also won a $10 gift certificate from the Mirror Mountain Festival for a sandwich shop in Ottawa. So, I mean, not to show off, but I think the coupon's still good. So next time in Ottawa, I'll get some sandwiches. So for this, ever since I was a kid, like I like to tell people I first meet, when you're a kid, you watch cartoons, then you grow up and you kind of stop. I kind of never stopped. Not only was I kind of, watching whatever was on TV, my dad used to tape NFB collections, so like The Log Driver's Waltz, The Cat Came Back, all these older animations I would just eat them up as a child. And so I went, when I was very young, I always knew that I wanted to go into animation. Originally I wanted to be an actor, but I was too shy, so I'm like, I can act behind the screen using animated characters instead. Which luckily, I'm very lucky to have known that this is where I want to go, and this is where I am going, and is kind of technically where I am now, which is super dope. I was planning to come to Annecy this year anyway, but then Five in Focus happened, and then oops, now we're on a panel. So I wasn't quite expecting this to happen, but thank you very much for having us. I'm having a wonderful time, and I'm also having a wonderful time on the Five in Focus program, where we've, as Roseanne said, my mentor is Alison Snowden, who won a bunch of awards recently with Animal Behavior, fantastic Oscar award nominated film. And we were talking with Jan Miller, who has kind of coached us with some pitching sessions, has been just really integral in kind of getting us to sell ourselves a little more and feel better, because it's so easy, as an artist, and two, maybe as a female artist, to really kind of push yourself down, or I guess I'm good at drawing, or I'm okay, But it's okay to kind of show off a little more.
Yes, it is.
Oh, thanks. Go on. So that's been really helpful, and just knowing having this opportunity to direct, I know it's going to do me just major favors in the future too. I'm going to have this credit, another credit to my name. Of course, I say at work at Atomic all the time, yeah, this board's going great and I'm having a good time, but I will direct one day, right? But that's something that this is kind of helping to, if people know what you want to do, and if you're lucky enough to know what you want to do, put it out there, not the secret style, but when people know that you're interested in something, they'll kind of point you in the right direction. So I hope that this will kind of keep us doing those kinds of things too, because get what you want, girls. It's good. Go on.
That's good, Stephanie.
I'm done now.
We'll move on to Jen Davro, our writer.
Thanks, Roseanne. Hi, I'm Jen Davro. I was the writer for our short film. I actually come from a storyboarding background, so this program and this short film marks the first time I've ever actually had the opportunity to write something in a more, I guess, official capacity. My professional experience is being a storyboard artist and storyboard supervisor at DHX Media for the past 6 years. But I think that's one of the best things about the Five in Focus program is it can be so easy for us to kind of either be pigeonholed or even kind of pigeonhole ourselves into one spot and not really know how to either shift into something different or move up from the position that we're at. And I think the program really gives an opportunity to people like me who were kind of in a spot but really wanted to kind of explore other options in our career. I had a bit of an interesting time coming into this because I was the person with the least experience, aka zero experience, in my in my chosen category. And I personally, and I know a lot of other people do, deal with a lot of imposter syndrome in the thing I'm experienced in. So to go into something where I'm just starting fresh and I don't know what I'm doing was, it was daunting to say the least. But through the program, they give you such a supportive environment and opportunities to push you out of your comfort zone. This, for example, I am a terrible public speaker, but we were given a lot of great coaching from Jan Miller and a lot of practice, getting more comfortable and helping us, kind of grow as individuals and within the short that we were working on. even having the experience of over the course of making the film so that you have made the thing and you can say that you made the thing and know that you did it, like even just knowing that you've done it is such a boost to your confidence going forward. Like now I feel confident saying, yes, I know I can do this, and because I've done it, so I have that experience under my belt.
Yes.
And yeah, I'd say that's probably been the biggest benefit for me, is just having that confidence. And I actually just signed on for my first full-time writing job recently, like just before and I can say that it is like directly from everything that I've learned and just the amount of support, like the support system from Five in Focus has just been amazing, and I am so excited to see how this program will grow and change the face of our industry, and I think it'll only get better and better from here. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Now let's move on to Caitlin Sutherland, our animation director.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Sutherland. I'm an animation supervisor at DHX Media, working on a television series and partner with Cartoon Saloon. I'm also here now as the animation director for this year's Women in Animation 5 in Focus program. I love animation. Animation is my passion, and I've had no problem working on my own little animations outside of school and work, but it's been about 4 years now since I've made a short film, so when this opportunity came up to make a film with this group of passionate and like-minded women, I definitely couldn't say no. I'm very glad to be here. Extremely nervous to be publicly speaking, but very glad to be here. For one thing, I'm here, in France at the world's largest animation film festival, speaking on a panel. Something I've only ever dreamed of doing since school, which was 4 years ago at Sheridan College, and 4 short years, here I am as an animation director. It's not just the title that means a lot to me, it's the skills I'm developing as we go through this program that are going to prove and have been proving themselves invaluable. Being up here talking to you all, as a few of my colleagues have mentioned, is not the easiest thing to do, but thanks to Five in Focus program, we have been given some coaching on how to pitch our films and work on our public speaking. Also, troubleshooting and communication skills, definitely something that's been given me a bit of a workout on this project, making a 2D film, being the only individual on this team of women that is familiar with the later half of a 2D pipeline. We ran into a couple snags here and there, and a lot of last-minute, late-night meetings were had. Probably a few more before we're finished this, but honestly, these skills I'm learning are just completely just worth it and so valuable. Learning how to communicate with other departments, convey vision, hire on, and coordinate animators are just all opportunities I wouldn't have had this past year if not for the Five in Focus program. And these are all skills that help me improve day to day as my role as a supervisor and help me build on the skills to further my future goals to become a director and a showrunner. I truly see this program as an important stepping stone in my career, and I just want to say thank you to WIA for your support.
Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, Spectacle 5 Films. I think we have time for a question or two, if anybody has a question. Sure.
Hi.
I love the fact that you're all working in the industry already. I'm just curious, what's the reaction from your superiors, and what has been the reaction from the community at large at your studios?
I'll go first. So I'm working at Atomic Cartoons, like I said, and the reaction from them has been incredibly supportive. We do have meetings throughout the week. Normally they're quite early in the morning before work, sometimes after work, but they know that I'm working on it. I still do, I'm trying to get, and I am successful at getting my work done at the same time. It is very busy. I mean, I would love to just work on this full time for sure, but it's still manageable and I believe we can do it. But like my supervisors, everyone, like even my, I had a letter of recommendation to get into the program and my supervisor just wrote the most lovely thing. It was very great. So everyone that I've kind of worked with has been fantastic about the project, and also really excited about it too, and just excited to see where it can go.
Yeah, we were actually all nominated by our studios, and I know that definitely at Mainframe Entertainment, my producer was the one that gave me the letter, but I know that one of the executive boards was also very supportive of the women that they nominated in the studio. And right before I left for here, I high-fived her, and the head of the studio high-fived her on my way to Annecy, and they're very supportive. We have our meetings actually in the boardroom at Mainframe because they know that it's an important part of building the skills of their team to support people in these projects. So it's just been really great. And that was one of the things I think with this particular program, because it was so focused on nomination process and making sure we did have the support, because going into making a short film while we're working is going to be a little bit taxing. And so it's so great to go into that with that breath saying our studios support us in this endeavor.
I mean, yes, our studios definitely nominated us. I'm just not sure they totally knew what they were getting into. I specifically remember my producer's face a couple weeks ago when I told him I was going to be gone for like another week, like for this program, and he was just like very supportive and was like definitely okay with me doing it, but just like realizing how much time we're not going to do it. But in terms of like community support, there's just been so many like friends, but also just people I am just meeting in the industry that have just wanted to be a part of this program in whatever way they could really help us out, even if it's just like, I'll do a couple of seconds of animation here, like, you're not hiring for this department, but like, if you need help, like, it's just been an amazing outreach from the community, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've had the same experience, like, everyone's been really great, like, yeah, like everyone else, I was nominated by one of the higher-ups at my studio, and my directors at the time, I went to them asking, like, I need a reference letter, will someone give me a reference letter? And they were both amazing and helped me out and were super supportive. Even getting my new job writing, I'm actually having to leave the studio that I'm at for that, and even with that, like, they knew this was something that I was working towards, and I think even when they nominated me to do this, because we don't do writing at my studio, they kind of knew and were rooting for me, and that's been really great too.
What we're hoping for is, right now we just started animation. So next year we want to come back and screen the film and again have a case study panel, and then these guys can talk a lot more about the film and where everything's going at that point. So thank you everyone for your time, and if you have any questions, you can certainly reach out, and thank you to all the studios from Vancouver that are supporting us, VEC and FB that I know are in the room, Atomic. Thank you very much.
Thank
Can you come in?
Our next panel will begin at 3:45, so we'll have a short break, and please come back for our next panel. The new face of what is it called? The new face of animation in Hollywood. Thank you.
Stand right here, I can get you in.
Okay, I know.